situation continues to worsen in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir due to clashes between protesters and authorities. Several videos circulating on social media show protesting civilians running for their lives as protests turn violent. This comes amid a wheel jam strike that is continuing for the fourth consecutive day in POK, that's Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. The Awami Action Committee had called for a shutdown and wheel jam strike across the state as a mark of their protest against electricity price hikes and hikes on taxes. However, the situation escalated as clashes broke out between protesters and police, bringing the daily life to a standstill.
दोबारा किसी के घर गए आप किसी को अरेस्ट किया तो फिर उसके बाद मैदान होगा आप होंगे और हम होंगे.
So the protesters here have also demanded that why special privileges are being given to the president and the prime minister of the country. Meanwhile, political activists too have expressed concern, demanding the international community to raise their voice for them.
At the moment, the situation in Muzaffarabad, the capital of Pakistani-occupied Jammu Kashmir, is getting very, very serious. What happened is this morning, about 500,000 people descended upon Muzaffarabad and in the suburbs to protest against taxes on electricity bills, cuts in subsidies, and to demand end to the perks and privileges of the Prime Minister, the President, all members of Legislative Assembly as well as the judges and bureaucracy. We are in a desperate situation. We need the international community to come and stand by us, raise their voice for us. The Indian repertoire in the United Nations, we request them to raise their voice at the United Nations Forum. We also request the Indian government to instruct the Ministry of External Affairs to summon the Pakistan ambassador and ask for an explanation. This is broad daylight murder that is taking place in POJK. Our lives are in danger, people's lives are in danger.
Now, amid the intensified protests against the Pakistan government in POK, External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, on Monday reiterated the country's stand on merging the illegally occupied region. He said that one day India will end the illegal occupation of Pakistan in POK and it will join hands with India.
For us, the initial goal was first to deal with the 370 issue. The country has already seen after 5 years how much of a difference there is today in the ground situation in Jammu and Kashmir as a result today of it being fully integrated with this country. So that part is integrated. There is the other part. So watch part 2 of the series.
And now we have with us Mr. Prabhu Dayal, former Indian Consul General in Pakistan. Let's try and understand these protests better with him. Welcome, sir, to the program. What do you see as the root cause of the current situation in POK, and how serious is the situation from a law and order, economic and political point of view?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show to discuss this very, very important topic. As you asked me, what is the root cause? The root cause, beyond doubt, is Pakistan's economic crisis. The protesters in POK are raising their voices against the rising costs of food, fuel, utilities, and a host of other problems. And they do inevitably compare their sad plight with the well-being of Kashmiris who are living in Jammu and Kashmir. It is no secret that the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir has witnessed a tremendous amount of well-being and growth. And the people in POK are not blind to this. So when they contrast the well-being of the Kashmiris in India with their own sad plight, their misery compounds. Let me also mention that the people of POK feel that they are being discriminated against. And this feeling is also shared by their leaders. The people in POK feel that, for instance, in regard to electricity, they feel that they are being discriminated against and that they have not even been receiving their fair share of the hydropower which is produced by the Neelam-Jhelum project. There is no doubt that the collapse of trade with India has adversely affected people in Jammu and Kashmir, in the POK, in the Pakistan-occupied part. Let me mention that the strikes which are taking place have been led by the members of the Joint Awami Action Committee, which is an organization led by the traders in POK. Now, their well-being has been very badly affected because, first of all, India had raised customs duties to 200% on Pakistani products. And then in 2019, Pakistan, stopped trade with India. And this stopping of trade adversely affected the trading community of POK. So their plight has been worsened. And you hear these cries of Azadi, you hear calls for international support, because the Pakistan government is doing nothing at all for the well-being of the people of POK.
Yeah, talking of, I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but talking of international help and international support, we heard political activists Ayub Mirza there talking about global community to act, raise their voice for them. So what role do you see from the United Nations, for that matter, to have a say in this situation?
Well, it depends now on how the matter is taken to the United Nations. Who takes the matter? Because the United Nations will only react once it has a document in front of it. Certainly, the human rights situation in POK deserves attention of the international community. And if the people who live there are being discriminated against, if they are voicing of their cries for freedom, then certainly this is a matter which the international community and particularly the United Nations must look at, because otherwise their plight will only worsen.
Okay, sir. Thank you for your analysis here. Request you to stay with us because we would like your views on another important story, which is the India and Iran agreeing to operate the Chabahar port. Request you to stay with us for a little more while. Let's move on now. Marking a historic moment in its ties with Iran, India on Monday signed a 10-year contract for operating the Shahid Beheshti port in Chabahar. It's the closest Iranian port to India. The agreement enables India to expand its footprint in the global supply chain and maritime sector. This is the first time India will take over the management of an overseas port. Our correspondent Meghana Dev reports.
In a major move to boost regional connectivity and strengthen bilateral partnership, India and Iran signed a long-term contract for the operation of the Shahid Beheshti port in Chabahar. India will develop and operate Iran's strategic Chabahar port for 10 years. The contract has been signed between India Ports Global Limited and Ports and Maritime Organization of Iran. The signing took place in presence of Indian Minister of Ports, Shipping and Waterways Sarbananda Sonowal and Minister of Roads and Urban Development of Iran, Mehrdad Bazbash.
दुनिया के सबसे लोकप्रिय नेता प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के निर्देश के मुताबिक आज हम लोगों ने हमारे चबाहार पोर्ट की लॉन्ग टर्म कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में आज हम लोगों ने दस्तखत की है और ये बहुत साल से बातचीत चल रहे थे। इतना दिन तक तो ये शॉर्ट टर्म के थे, तो इसलिए इस पोर्ट के भविष्य को मजबूत बनाने के सिलसिले में और रीजनल कनेक्टिविटी को बढ़ावा देने के लिए प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी का जो विजन है, उस विजन को साकार करने के लिए आज ऐसे एक ऐतिहासिक कदम उठाए गए हैं।
The very clear expectation is that the Chabahar port, at least that part of the Chabahar port that we are involved in, that will definitely see more investments. It will see more connectivity linkages coming out of that port. And we believe today that connectivity is a very big issue in that part. International North-South transport corridor, which we're doing with Iran, Russia. Chabahar will connect us to that, also to Central Asia. We have a separate corridor, the IMEC corridor through Saudi Arabia.
IPGL will invest approximately $120 million in equipping the port. India has also offered an INR credit window equivalent to $250 million for mutually identified projects aimed at improving Chabahar-related infrastructure. India has so far supplied 6 mobile harbour cranes and other equipment worth $25 million for the development of the first phase of the Shahid Beheshti terminal in cooperation with the government of Iran. India Ports Global Limited has been operating the port since 2018 and has handled traffic of more than 90,000 TEUs of container traffic and more than 8.4 MMT of bulk and general cargo. With the operationalization of India's long-term investment in Chabahar, this port is likely to become an important hub for regional connectivity. The contract will also be able to enhance global trade by providing an alternate trade route to India for Iran, Afghanistan, Eurasia, and Central Asian republics. Meghna Dev's report for DD India.
Now let's understand the significance of Chabahar port from India's perspective. Chabahar is Iran's only oceanic port situated in Sistan and Baluchistan province on the Makran coast and is the closest to India, providing an easy and secure access for large cargo ships. The port offers an alternative route that bypasses Pakistan, reducing India's reliance on its neighbour for trade with Afghanistan and beyond. Also, Chabahar port will boost India's trade and access to Iran. It will further strengthen the international north-south transport corridor between India, Iran, Russia, Central Asia and Europe. Last year, India used the port to send 20,000 tons of wheat aid to Afghanistan. And interestingly, this is the first time India will take over the management of an overseas port that will also have a multiplier effect on trade among India, Iran and Afghanistan. India and Iran have projected the port as a key hub for the INSTC project. The INSTC is a 7,200 km long multi-mode transport project for moving freight among India, Iran, Afghanistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Russia, Central Asia and Europe. With Chabahar port becoming functional, there will be a significant boost in the import of iron ore, sugar and rice to India. The import cost of oil to India will also see a considerable decline. And now let's go back to our esteemed guest, Prabhu Dayalji. Sir, how are you seeing the economic gains that are likely to accrue to India from this historic Chabahar agreement?
Well, Tanvi, you correctly pointed out during your introductory remarks that the Chabahar port is strategically located on Iran's southeastern coast around the Gulf of Oman. I would like to recall that during Prime Minister Modi's visit to Iran in 2016, a pact was signed by India and Iran for the development of this port. And since then, India has been developing in Chabahar port a terminal which is named the Shahid Beheshti terminal. Now, a very important aspect of the agreement which was signed yesterday was that now India will be able to operate the project for 10 years. Now, till now, India and Iran had been signing one-year contracts. And these were not very attractive, because they don't serve as great incentives for shippers to use the port, because they wanted a more permanent arrangement. Now, that permanent arrangement is going to be provided by the agreement that was signed yesterday, which will be valid not for 1 year, but for 10 years. And moreover, which will be automatically renewable. Now, This agreement will open up a trade route between South Asia and Central Asia via Iran, and significantly it will be bypassing Gwadar and Karachi ports in Pakistan. So India will be able to now gain access to Central Asia, bypassing Pakistan, which is a very big impediment in our global outreach. As you yourself mentioned, Chabahar's strategic significance has also to be viewed in the larger context of the international North-South transport corridor, which will have the participation of 13 countries, including, of course, India, Russia, Iran, and the Central Asian countries. So this corridor will link India's western ports to Russia's Baltic Sea coast via Iran, Afghanistan, and Central Asia. So it will be a seamless transport corridor spanning thousands of kilometers, and therefore, in the long term, this agreement which was signed yesterday between India and Iran will boost trilateral trade between India, Iran, and Afghanistan, but at the same time, it could also herald a new age for India's trade, transshipment, and cooperation with Central Asia and Russia.
All right. On that note, we wind up this discussion. Thank you very much, Prabhu Dayalji, for coming to DD India and sharing your insights on both these stories. Chabahar ports, India agreeing to signing this pact to operate this port, and also the unrest that is continuing in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.